Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a founding partner at Übermorgen Ventures, and I'm here today with Frederic Fournier, co-founder and CEO of Open Forest Protocol, and we talk about decentralizing MRV, measurement, reporting, and verification in the voluntary carbon markets. Just going to wait for Fred to get ready.
Hi, Alex. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to have this conversation. Let's talk about Open Forest Protocol, and I thought it would be an elegant way to do so by just going through your name. Let's start in the middle. Why are forests important?
Yeah, okay, that's good. So why forest is important? So we're losing, probably as everyone know, a lot of forest every year. Currently 5 million hectares every year, roughly. So that's one of the problems we have to tackle is how to reverse that trend. And basically, if you look at forest has an important role to play for the ecosystem, but also in the carbon market. And so basically today in those markets, forests are a great asset to consider, but it's very hard to actually, as a player in this market, to understand who is doing what where, and most importantly, projects on the ground, they don't have access to carbon finance, so it's very hard for them to have access to carbon finance, and it's also for them difficult to have a good system for the reporting, so what we call the MRV, measurement, reporting, and verification. So that's why forest has an immense role to play if we do it well, because it could also be not beneficial if we don't do it well. And yeah, that's the whole topic of what we address. Just a point on forest is that at Open Forest Protocol, we address mostly what we call forestation, not forestry. Forestation meaning afforestation, reforestation, agroforestry, and some conservation.
Cool. You talked about how to do it well. Let's go to the next word in your name, protocol.
Yeah.
I guess that's where we enter the crypto world. One of the reasons why we at Übermorgen Ventures find Open Forest Protocol so compelling is because you managed to apply crypto primitives to run a system of a decentralized collaborative way in the real world. Maybe you can help us to understand how you do this.
Yes, so that's basically so blockchain is not it's not a mean, it's a tool for us. Why is it important? Is because we want to have a different approach to how we do things today in this market. We want to empower the projects on the ground to do the monitoring themselves. And instead of having a centralized validation system, we are providing a decentralized validation system. What does that mean? It means that instead of having one consultant or one company checking the data from those projects that is going to be uploaded every year, we have a decentralized system where we have dozens of companies that are knowledgeable about forest that will check this data. So it's actually strengthening the whole validation process. And it's strengthening also because those people might see things or might share things that no other systems were able to actually detect. And this is built on blockchain because basically it's a framework which everyone kind of agrees to work in or to work with. And it's very important to actually put in this framework all the data flow from the project. So they capture the data from the ground. Then there is a validation from those companies I was mentioning. And all this is happening in a very open, transparent, and immutable way. And that's why we're using blockchain.
Cool. Thank you. Lastly, open. I guess that alludes to the permissionlessness and transparency of Open Forest Protocol.
Yes.
Can you elaborate, please?
Yes. So transparency is in the VCM is extremely important, and if a buyer today wants to have trust in the system, it's possible to actually get trust in the system by spending a lot of time analyzing different standards, different reports, trying to compare projects to projects. So it's a very complex, a very high level approach, which you requires actually a lot of time and resources. So for usual buyers, it's very difficult to navigate this space. So what we're proposing here is to make all the process transparent. Yeah. So it's very important that everyone can actually double check what's happening on the ground regularly. They have access to the data. They have access to how the forest is growing. They have access, if they buy carbon from a specific project, they have access to per which the carbon has been created, and everything is open and open source and visible to anyone. So that's why open is super important for us, and why we believe this is a very good solution for scaling this market, in the sense that if you remove that transparency, then the scale is very difficult. If you add transparency, then eventually you open up this scale.
Thank you. I guess that's exactly the reason why we also invested in Open Forest Protocol. We're big fans. But let's add some meat to the bone. Can you give, especially the audience, some examples of projects that you onboarded onto the platform?
So currently we've launched last July our MRV solutions, consisting of 3 products. I won't get too much into the details, but the products we have onboarded so far are projects that are looking for support in the MRV aspect and the carbon financing aspect. And they are finding us as a very compelling proposition because our business model is basically enabling us to propose that free of charge. So they don't have upfront costs. They don't need extra resources to understand what to do, and we can help them with that. So most of them are, for the moment, small and medium-sized projects in different countries. We have mostly, for the moment, Central America, South America, and Africa. And we're also working in countries where this VCM market is kind of structuring at the moment. Why? Because also talking to governments, they also like us because governments are also stuck in a place today where it's completely opaque for them too. So they don't know who is doing what where. So they don't know where the money is coming from. So eventually they are unable to get a tax out of those carbon, which is really bad for the country. So in this transparency world, it's beneficial for the projects, beneficial for the government, beneficial for the buyer at the end. So it's a very good value proposition, and I think that's how we see it. Not everywhere, of course, because you have to have the mindset of being able to share or wanting to share and being transparent. But if you have this mindset, I think it's a really good value proposition for all the players, and that's why we think an ecosystem level, working together in an ecosystem level, is very important.
But that also means that for larger forestry projects, the value proposition is actually right there, right?
The value proposition for larger projects is exactly the same. It's exactly the same. However, and we have to be honest, Open Forest Protocol is still in early stages, so we don't have a name out there, and of course we have to be trusted, we have to be challenged sometimes, and but it's just a matter of time to make a name in this market. And obviously the bigger players, some of the bigger players we're already talking to will come along. We'll see how much time it takes to embrace a different perspective on this standardization or registry, if you will. And but the premises that we build is basically for everyone to use, so completely open.
You just said you're an early player. Before we had a coffee, you said 3 years ago you didn't think that there's applications for blockchain. Where do you think 10 years from now the space will be, an Open Forest Protocol will be?
Yeah, so that's sharing a bit of my personal journey. So I'm a scientist by training, so I like to challenge everything I see. And when I saw blockchain in the early days, and actually not so, I was going to a few conferences back in 2017, 18. I was like saying, no, this technology doesn't mean anything. It's not adding value to anything. Probably not something we can use. And 4 years later, I'm actually in a setup where we use blockchain. And I think the message here is that you need to think about technology as how you apply technology to something, not technology as a mean. Because if we go back to the projects on the ground, we don't tell them we're using blockchain. We don't tell them that there is a wallet behind. We don't tell them that there is an NFT for the project. We don't tell them anything. We just tell them, yeah, here is an interface for you to use. It's a Web2 interface. You enter in a system where you don't have to trust us. You don't have to trust anyone. You just trust the data that you're collecting, and people will trust this data and you because they have access to the data. So we make sure this data is in a system that everyone can trust. And I think that's the kind of the beauty of blockchain. of course, it's also difficult to explain the difference between what's happening today into this Web3 environment where you see big scams, you see centralized exchanges collapsing, a bit like Lehman Brothers back in the days. So there's a bit of everything, but even when you come down to the technology, we are, or at least I am now, totally convinced that it has, not only for us, for probably many startups, a good ground, and it can be used for really to bring novelty to how we actually consider doing technology.
Thank you. Thanks for doing what you're doing. I guess people are getting nervous here.
1 minute.
1 minute. Questions to the audience, maybe?
There's one here.
What protocol are you using?
Are you referring to the blockchain we're building on top of? So yeah, we're building on top of the NOAH protocol. Yeah, which is a third generation blockchain. Proof of stake, yes. So yeah, and it's for the moment it's a climate neutral blockchain. South Pole has done the offset of that, and they want to be climate negative, I think. So yeah, that's the topic that we can also address. You know, a blockchain has been very problematic for some blockchains. At least Bitcoin is very problematic for energy consumptions. It's a real problem. For the third generation blockchains on proof of stake, it's completely different story because you can basically compare that to storing data on servers. Not far from that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you so much. Round of applause.
Thank you.
Very informative.
Thank you, Alex.